Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do another video on the Acura Legend in our series of replacing the head gasket. If you didn't catch our part 1 video, I recommend you go and watch that so you can get caught up on all the things that we're doing here. Right now where we stand is that the heads are off at the machine shop, having them decked, having them cleaned, pressure tested, having a valve job, and having the valve stem seals replaced. All critical things that will really tie back to making sure that this engine runs nice and smoothly when we go ahead and reinstall the heads and get new head gaskets installed. Well, in the meantime, we can focus on things like the valve train behind me and the engine bay beside me. The valve train needs to have its hydraulic tappets removed. We need to replace some O-rings there. It's a little tricky, so we'll show you how to do that, along with how to bleed those. We're also going to focus on the hoses as well as the power steering pump, along with some of the cleaning and preparation that we need to do. There's some snapped off bolts in the exhaust manifold from when we removed them, as well as trying to replace the oxygen sensors since we have access to that. So a plethora of work that needs to be done in the time that we're waiting for those machine shop tasks to get done. Something to note that if you're going to go ahead and do this job yourself, you might want to factor in how long it takes for the machine shop to do their side of the job. So often machine shops are, backlogged, have some time built into that. For us, it's about 2 to 4 weeks is what they expected. We do have a holiday in between that time, so we don't expect that those heads will be back anytime soon. But that's okay. It gives us plenty of time to focus on the other aspects of the engine bay and engine itself. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Okay, we arrived at Green Mountain Gearheads in Vermont to drop off the heads for the car. Okay, so we've got the heads here, we've got the valve stem seals here. We're going to drop these off and get them serviced. Okay, we've got two very hard to find heater hoses for this car. So this one goes right here, and then this one goes right here. And the reason why I wasn't able to make these is because to make the hoses from stock, you have to use a pipe bender and you have to use steam and you have to use clamps. Well, this one was too thick and complex of a bend, so every time I made it, the bend wouldn't stay because there's so many hard bends to the hose here. Or if I was able to get it to stay, it would have a kink in it, and obviously that's not ideal. So these are super hard to find, and what I mean by super hard, Gates used to make these, AC Delco used to make these, and Continental used to make these, and they're all discontinued. I actually was able to find a source that could ship these to me, and I was able to obviously get them, but not many in stock, so that's pretty worrisome. We'll have to come up with an idea for the community on how to replace these in the future, but at least we're taken care of here today. I think I probably could have made this one work. I was a little bit worried about this bend right here, but I think I could have made that one work. It was a little complex. These bends right here are pretty easy to get them to make and to hold. So both were available online from my source. So I went ahead and purchased both, but we'll probably make all the other hoses because simple hoses like these and like the one that goes from the valve over to the engine, that one's really easy. I've already made it. And then, hoses like this one, this is a replacement hose that I made. It's very doable. It's just the thickness, the size. I think this is like 3/8 or 5/8, which is just too big to really get it to work. You can see how aggressive that bend is right there and how it's actually kind of crinkling the hose. So you really need professional tools to make that work. No DIY on this one. So there we are. We'll get those installed though. All right, so we've got those hoses installed. Put a little silicone spray on the inside of them to slide them on. They're a little tight to get on, but they do their job if they're tight. So can't complain there. We've got everything all sorted out. We've got a nice new valve right there for control into our heater core, and we cleaned up the bracket and put some new hardware on there to make it look nice and fresh. Although probably nobody will ever see it. At least we'll know that it's nice and fresh behind everything. We've got the heads at the machine shop right now. They're going to clean those heads up. They're going to pressure check them. They're going to put new valve stem seals on there and make sure that we don't need anything while it's all disassembled. They're going to deck the head, and that will give us a nice clean mating surface for our block. We're going to work on getting our block cleaned up here. We've got a carbide scraping tool that we can use to get some of that old graphite gasket off. I tried using this right here, and honestly, that gasket remover is pretty weak, and it took a while to get to even this point. And although it did remove a fair bit of it, there's still a little bit there that we're going to have to follow back behind with the carbide scraping tool anyway. So let's just see what this carbide scraping tool does. We're going to work on cleaning up those piston heads, make sure that we get a vast majority of that buildup off of it. That's going to hopefully help with our engine performance, as we'll have some slightly increased performance with all that carbon gone. Otherwise, it's going pretty well at this point. We're going to continue our cleaning journey here, make sure we can clean everything up and address anything else while we're in there. We got some hoses that we need to make. We've got some hoses we need to put on order. I feel like we're going to be replacing a lot of these vacuum hoses. Although they seem to be in good shape, there's some that have splits in them. So why risk it? I do like the fact that they have the factory numbers on them, so you know where they go. That's always super helpful. But in this case, I think the situation is those that can't be seen should be replaced. And if we can use the ones that are front and center so we still have that OEM look, that'll be great. We're going to work on getting our power steering pump out. We're going to do a reseal on that here shortly. It'll be a separate video for everybody. And that's where we're at right now. Okay, so we're back working on the Acura Legend. We're getting it prepped right now so that when the heads come back from the machine shop, we'll have a nice clean surface to mount our heads onto. And what we're doing right now is taking some WD-40, so that's water displacement formula number 40, to help get off some of the residual graphite gasket that was there from the old head gasket. Additionally, we want to start trying to clean up these pistons. Now, I tried oven cleaner, that didn't work. I tried the gasket remover, that didn't really work. But WD-40 with a carbide scraping tool such as this really made the job easier. I got a little bit more to go here, but you can see how clean it comes out. You just want to be careful not to gouge it because it is carbide and you're dealing with aluminum block here. So you want to be careful, but otherwise it's going pretty well. We'll start to clean up these pistons. And additionally, the WD-40 is really going to help coat the inside of those cylinder walls so that any flash rusting that occurs will be very minimal, if at all. If we were to leave it, it would pretty much flash rust and start to build up a little bit. Not to say that that can be completely bad, but since this car will likely not get driven again until the spring, it doesn't hurt to help prevent that a little bit. So that's where we're at right now with this and our block. One of the other jobs that you want to do while you're in there and you've got everything disassembled is take a look at your fuel rail. So this is your fuel rail. These are your injectors here. You could take the opportunity to clean the injectors like I have already. Basically, you just want to not touch the nozzle, clean up around there. You could shoot some carb cleaner through them or some like fuel injection cleaner. But I already know that I've run a few bottles of fuel injection cleaner through these recently, and so that they're pretty good. There's another video that we did on the Acura CL where we showed you how to do that. So if you want to see how to do that, I'll link that video down below. But what we need to do right here is to take these injectors out. Very carefully, we want to kind of twist and rock them, and so that they will come out eventually. All right, with your injector out, you'll see that there's a couple O-rings and gaskets that need to be replaced here. We've got one on the bottom, plus another one that's in the manifold. Then we've got this bushing, if you will, that black one, and then we have this green one. You can see we even have a little bit of a tear there. So all of that's going to factor into this injector not leaking when we put it back together. Go ahead and put that there. You'll need a gasket kit like this one. that you can pick up from most auto parts stores. Most Hondas are pretty much the same. It comes with all the gaskets that you need, and it's a pretty simple process and pretty inexpensive. It's a bit of peace of mind that when you go to install everything, that there won't be any leaks. So let's go ahead and get into this. All right, once you have everything reassembled and it's good to go back into the fuel rail, if you spray a little bit of a silicone spray lubricant on your glove and then wipe it on this gasket, that'll make inserting it into the rail that much easier. And the reason why I say that is apparently during the assembly process and the insertion of this injector into the fuel rail, somebody managed to do this. This would have led to a leak eventually and would have shot fuel between the fuel rail and the injector, possibly leading to a fire. So you want to make sure that you don't tear this gasket at the top and that you are able to slide it in. Take your time, put a little bit of spray silicone lubricant on the O-ring and just twist and wiggle until it slides in. You definitely don't want to rush that and have a bad seal there. And then the last thing that you want to do is replace the O-rings that sit in here. These are just bushings, but you can see that's hard as a rock. There's no way that that's doing much of anything at this point when you compare it to something like this. So we want to just drop these in. We'll obviously clean up the holes, but there's no real big task here. You just want to make sure that you replace these. That'll make sure that it cuts down on any harsh vibrations, as well as it makes sure that you have a good seat into your injector. All right, and we've got our new O-rings installed. We cleaned up the holes so that they have a nice, clean, and tight fit. That will make sure that when we go to install the injectors that they'll have the opportunity to seal pretty well up against those rubber O-rings or grommets, if you will. When we look at the other ones, these were the old ones. These are definitely compressed, but they're also hard. I can't tell if these are metal or if these have just turned from rubber to plastic over the years. I wouldn't be surprised if they were originally rubber like these and they turned to plastic, because these are going to be exposed to a lot of heat, and with constant pressure, they're going to turn rock hard. So after 30 years, now we have plastic. But with these new O-rings, we'll have good fitment, and we'll also have a good place for these injectors to sit on that won't have hard vibrations. Overall, a really good cheap investment. We've started to work on the rest of the intake manifold. You'll see that I've cleaned up everything, as well as I'm starting to work on some of the hoses here, getting these replaced and making sure that we have a nice good seal when we put everything back together. So that's it on this portion, and we'll move on to the next job. All right, the next thing we want to focus on is the oxygen sensors. We want to get these 30-year-old oxygen sensors out and replace them with brand new ones while we have them out. And the reason being is that after 30 years, even though these aren't triggering a check engine light, they're going to be off on their readings. And that is because as life goes on with these, they quickly decline. So they actually have a life cycle. With OBD0 cars, they're really just checking to see if there's continuity in the oxygen sensor itself, but not telling you whether you're getting accurate readings. So while these exhaust manifolds are out and we're going to clean them up, might as well replace them with fresh new oxygen sensors. So if you've never done this before, they typically don't give you a lot of opportunity to be successful here. So we're going to go ahead and heat these up, and we'll see if we can get them out. But ultimately, it's going to be a harder job because after 30 years, they're pretty much fused in there. And they don't use anti-seize, or they didn't back then anyways, when installing these. So they'll likely break off, but we'll figure out a way to get them out. We'll give it the best shot, though, that we can. All right, so I got the oxygen sensor out, and what a battle it was. It took a couple of really long heating sessions to make sure that I could get this out in one piece. Took a long breaker bar and my oxygen sensor socket to do so. Clamped in the vise just like this. And when it finally did let go, it was pretty violent and I bashed my hand. But my hand will heal and we'll get this squared away. The other thing I have to focus on is this right here. This is one of the exhaust heat shield bolts. It seems like my luck was I break one and I get one out. So we'll have to do basically the same thing on both sides. I got to get the oxygen sensor out, and I broke one and I was able to get one out. Not the end of the world though. We'll go ahead and get this squared away. We'll clean up the threads a little bit, make sure that we use the proper anti-seize so that the next person doesn't have to struggle to get this out, and we'll get this all squared away. Now that we've got the oxygen sensor removed here, we do have to get out a snapped off exhaust heat shield bolt that is right here. So the way I like to do this is start with a center punch and kind of give that a couple tries. That'll make sure that we've got a nice starting point, and then we're going to have to drill this out. There's no other two ways about it. It's pretty much seized in there, so just grab a drill, proper bolt. All right, we were able to get the old bolt out. It took a lot of patience and a couple drill bits, but we were able to finally get the old one out by just drilling straight through that bolt and then retapping the hole so that we could have new threads. The great part about this is that when we have the new bolt arrive for this heat shield that goes on, it will go in quite smoothly. We also just cleaned up the threads on this hole so that we can easily put this bolt back in. Really nice and smooth. And then what we did was we chased the threads on here, making sure that we could get all the gunk out. We did lose a thread on this one during the removal process, but that's not a big deal. We cleaned up the threads, make sure that we have good engagement there, and we do. So what we'll do is we'll put this exhaust manifold off to the side. We'll leave the oxygen sensor out until we put this back in the car. Then we can put in our oxygen sensor just to make sure that we don't inadvertently damage that oxygen sensor during reassembly. So what we have to do is exactly the same thing on the other one. All right, so we have our old Denso oxygen sensor right here, and we have our new one laying next to it. The keen eye among you will know that it doesn't have the rubber little grommet holders that are on the factory one on the new Denso one, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how we go about transferring those over. What we're going to do is we're going to take and depin the end of this. This will allow us to slide this black grommet off, and we'll slide it onto the new one. So all you have to do is take some needle nose pliers and grab onto the end of this like this, and then pull it out. This will give you access to the pins that are in there. And if you use a pick, or you can use a flathead screwdriver, you can insert and release those. So it just takes basically the slightest little effort to get those up, and then you can push on the pin with your hand if you want to, and that will release them. I'll go ahead and do that real quick on these, and then we'll go ahead and slide those back together. All right, we were able to get the 2 rubber holders off, and now our task will be to put it on here. Now, the trick to getting these off is patience, but you want to slide these metal ring clips off that go on the end here, and then just slowly work the cable through there. Because of the weather pack seals, you just have to make sure that you take your time and not rip anything. So patience will be your friend here, but then you'll be able to get these on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, and then I'm going to measure the length on them. That'll give me an approximation of where I need to cut the protective sleeve and then insert our rubber piece. So pretty easy, just patience. All right, we got everything back together. It took a little bit of finagling, some patience, a little bit of wiggling, and we finally got everything looking OEM factory original. So this is the old pieces that we cut to length, and we've got the new pieces here. In place, we put the original rubber holders that go onto the exhaust manifold back onto the new Denso oxygen sensor because these don't come with it. Took a little bit of patience, like I said, to get it so that these are back on. We've got to go ahead and fix our connectors, put those back into the connection points, and then we'll be all set. All said and done, pretty challenging, but we got it taken care of.